Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm Pat.
And I'm Jesse.
And today, well, we're getting into some really fascinating stuff we've been looking at. Some quite complex emotions, actually.
Yeah, things that really shape how we connect or sometimes disconnect with people. We're talking about shame, guilt.
And how that connects to, well, blaming others,
Yeah.
right? And what that does to our relationship.
Exactly. And look, it can feel a bit heavy, maybe. Thinking about shame or blame isn't exactly fun.
No, definitely not.
But the insights we came across feel really valuable for understanding those tricky bits and how we interact.
Absolutely. And just to be clear, this is all about understanding the patterns. We're not here to point fingers or judge anyone. It's more about sharing what we found, the stories, the ideas, getting a handle on it.
So yeah, let's dive in and see what makes these feelings tick.
Okay, so first things first. We found some really useful ways to think about two feelings people often confuse: shame and guilt.
Yes, and getting this difference clear is like foundational for everything else we'll talk about. So the info we looked at really breaks it down like this. Guilt. That's about something you did, a behavior.
Like, I did something wrong. That specific thing.
Precisely. You feel bad about an action, maybe a mistake you made, something you regret. It's focused.
Oops, I shouldn't have done that. Okay, got it.
But shame is different. It's deeper.
How so?
Shame is the feeling that I am bad. It's not about what you did, it's about who you are.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like feeling your whole self is flawed or wrong or just not good enough.
Okay, that's a huge difference. I made a mistake versus I am a mistake. That lands pretty heavily.
It really does. And the research kind of backs this up. Guilt, right? It's uncomfortable and nobody likes it. But it's often connected to wanting to make things right. Like feeling guilty might push you to apologize or confess or try and fix the harm.
So it points you towards action,
Okay.
towards repair.
Yeah, often it does. It's focused on the behavior and its impact. But shame, because it hits your sense of self so hard.
You lead somewhere else.
It leads to really different reactions. And this is where blame starts to come into the picture. So blame, the material we explored suggests it often pops up as a kind of defense mechanism.
The defense?
Yeah. When that really sharp, awful feeling of shame hits, I'm fundamentally flawed, it can be just too much to bear.
Right.
So sometimes, almost automatically, the mind does this quick shift, pushes the blame onto someone else to avoid that pain.
Huh. So it's not always like a conscious plan to hurt someone.
Often not. At its root, no. Though the impact can definitely be hurtful. Projection is a big part of this, something mentioned in a few places.
Projection. Like projecting a movie onto a screen.
Sort of. It's a psychological thing where you take your own uncomfortable feelings, maybe urges, things you don't like about yourself, and you basically assign them to someone else. You see it in them instead of in yourself.
Okay, hang on. So if I'm feeling, say, insecure about something, I might accuse you of being insecure.
That's exactly the kind of thing. We saw an example, someone married but feeling attracted to someone else. Instead of dealing with their own complicated feelings,
Yeah.
they might accuse their partner of flirting all the time, see? They project their internal issue outward.
Wow. Okay. That makes sense in a difficult way.
Or like someone feeling really inadequate might bully others, pointing out their flaws relentlessly.
Because they can't face their own fear of not being good enough.
Exactly. Or another one was a parent, maybe disappointed with their own career, constantly criticizing their child's choices, projecting their own regrets onto the kid because facing it themselves is just too painful.
So you push the discomfort away, make it someone else's problem. It protects you, in a way.
It protects the ego, yeah. It shields you from having to look at something difficult inside. It can make those tough emotions feel maybe a bit more manageable.
Even if it damages the relationship.
Right. Even if it causes harm to the other person. It's like an ego survival tactic. But, the cost to real connection is huge.
It's kind of ironic then, isn't it? Blaming looks like aggression, like strength sometimes.
Yeah.
But it might actually be coming from this place of real vulnerability, of struggling with internal pain.
That's such a key point. And when you think about it that way, well, the energy cost is clear too, right?
What do you mean?
Well, if all your energy is going into blaming someone else, pointing the finger outward.
There's none left for looking inward.
Exactly. It stops self-reflection dead in its tracks. You're not dealing with the actual issue within you. You're just focused on finding fault outside. Problem solving shuts down.
Okay, so let's connect that more directly. Shame and blame. The research we saw gets specific about this link, and it's maybe not quite what you'd first guess.
Right. It's a bit nuanced. It's not as straightforward as shame makes you aggressive.
Oh, I might have assumed that. Feeling bad about yourself makes you lash out.
Well, the study suggests shame itself, that core feeling, doesn't always have a super strong direct link to aggression on its own.
Okay, so feeling I am bad doesn't automatically equal punching someone.
Not necessarily, no. But, and this is the crucial part, being prone to shame.
Meaning you tend to react with shame a lot.
Yes. If you have a tendency to feel shame when things go wrong, that tendency is strongly linked to also having a tendency to blame others.
Okay, so shame doesn't directly cause aggression, but it makes you more likely to blame. And blaming is linked to aggression, is that it?
That's the pathway the research points to. Shame proneness leads to what they call a blaming cognitive style, basically, a habit of thinking where you push fault outwards. And that externalizing of blame is connected to aggressive behaviors, verbal attacks, hostility, maybe even physical actions. The blaming seems to be the bridge.
That makes a lot more sense.
Nah.
The I'm terrible feeling is so painful
that
the mind just flips it. No, it's your fault. You made me feel this way.
Exactly. Some of the clinical insights describe that kind of rapid flip. The internal pain of shame is just intolerable. So the system shifts gears fast, finds an external target, anger comes up, blame comes out. It deflects that crushing feeling.
Like putting up an emotional shield really fast. Or maybe using blame as a weapon.
It definitely functions that way. And it's not just like making excuses after you've already acted aggressively. No, this blaming style, this tendency to think others are at fault for your bad feelings, it can actually fuel the aggression itself. It primes you to react with hostility. It kind of shuts down other more constructive ways of responding.
Okay, so shame links to blame, which links to lashing out. What about guilt then? Does it work the opposite way?
This is where that core distinction becomes so important and kind of hopeful, actually. The research shows that guilt, remember, feeling bad about a specific action, I did something wrong, is actually negatively linked with aggression.
Negatively. So more guilt-prone means less aggressive.
That's what the data suggests, yeah. The internal process is really different from shame. Guilt, being about the behavior, is tied strongly to taking responsibility for that behavior and its impact.
Okay, responsibility. Makes sense.
And here's the really key part. Guilt is also powerfully linked to empathy. Empathy.
Yeah.
Feeling with the other person.
Yes. Understanding or even feeling what they might be experiencing because of what you did. People prone to guilt seem less likely to blame others and more able to step into someone else's shoes. And that connection to empathy seems to be like a buffer, a protective factor against aggression. If you can genuinely connect with how your actions hurt someone,
you're much less likely to want to hurt them again.
Exactly. It changes your orientation.
That feels right. Guilt points you towards the other person and the impact, while shame kind of traps you inside yourself, maybe.
That's a great way to put it. One idea was that guilt encourages useful self-reflection, thinking about the action, the consequences, how to do better. Shame, though, it's linked more to just stewing in it.
Like getting stuck.
Yeah, unproductive rumination, just feeling bad about yourself without it leading anywhere helpful. Guilt says, bad thing happened, how do I fix it? Shame says, I am bad, I need to hide or fight. And these aren't just theories, right? This stuff plays out all the time in our relationships, sometimes in really painful ways. We saw some very relatable accounts, especially around guilt tripping.
Ah, yes, guilt tripping. It sounds like it's just about making someone feel guilty.
But it's often more complicated.
Often, yeah. And frequently, as we talked about with blame, it can be rooted more in the blamer's own stuff, their insecurities, their needs, rather than just a straightforward expression of hurt about something specific you did.
So what does that actually look like? What kind of things were people sharing?
Oh, all sorts. Often it's subtle, passive-aggressive stuff like the heavy sigh and, oh, I guess I'll just do it myself then, again.
Oof, yeah. Heard that one.
Or comparing you to others. Well, so-and-so's partner always makes time for them. Or exaggerating what they've done for you. After everything I sacrificed, this is the thanks I get. And a big one is dragging up old mistakes. Things you thought were forgiven, suddenly weaponized to make you feel bad now.
That doesn't sound like healthy communication at all. It sounds like control.
That's exactly the point many sources made. Guilt tripping is often seen as a form of emotional manipulation. The goal isn't really connection or solving a problem together.
It's about making the other person feel bad, specifically to get them to do what you want.
Exactly. Using guilt or the appearance of guilt as leverage.
And you said it often comes from the guilt tripper's own issues.
Yes, very much so. While the behavior is manipulative and can be really harmful, it's often a learned coping mechanism for them. It might come from their own unmet needs, deep insecurities, maybe a fear of being rejected or abandoned.
Or even past trauma.
Or past trauma, absolutely. The way they're interacting is hurtful, but the driver might be their own internal pain overflowing, getting in the way of connecting healthily.
It's like their own fears running the show.
It can be. Think about someone terrified of abandonment. For them, maybe any disagreement or boundary feels like a huge threat, like you might leave. So maybe unconsciously they resort to guilt tripping. Not necessarily because they're trying to be malicious, but because it's this desperate, ingrained way they try to pull you back, regain control, stop you from leaving. Their own stuff is driving it.
That helps understand where it might come from.
Yeah.
But wow, the impact on the person being guilt-tripped must be awful.
Oh, it's incredibly damaging. People described feeling constantly guilty, like they're always doing something wrong, losing their own sense of what's okay.
Yeah.
It really messes with your mental health, anxiety, depression, feeling like you're going crazy sometimes because your reality keeps getting twisted.
So how do you tell the difference, like, between someone genuinely expressing hurt versus manipulative guilt-tripping?
It really comes down to tone, intent, and especially the pattern. Is the person trying to share how your specific action impacted them, hoping for understanding or a solution?
Okay, that sounds healthy.
Right. Or is the clear intent to make you feel like a bad person, to pressure you, to coerce you into doing something? Is it this recurring dynamic where guilt is used like a tool? That's the difference. Sharing feelings is building connection. Guilt tripping is about control.
Okay, dealing with all this, the blame, the guilt trips, it sounds exhausting. Did the sources offer any, like, practical ways to handle it?
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of it starts with that first step we talked about, just recognizing the pattern.
Seeing it for what it might be.
Exactly. Understanding that maybe this blame, this guilt trip, is actually more about their internal stuff, their shame, their fear, their defenses, and not necessarily an accurate reflection on you.
That doesn't make it okay.
No, not at all. But it can help you not absorb it so deeply. It helps you observe the dynamic instead of just getting sucked into feeling bad or defensive.
Kind of like putting on emotional rain gear. Okay, this might be their stuff, not mine.
Precisely. And from that slightly more detached place, you can focus on setting boundaries. This isn't about fighting back with more blame. It's about being clear and firm. Saying things like, I understand you're upset, but I'm not willing to be spoken to like that. Or, I hear your frustration, but making me feel guilty isn't going to solve this.
That takes some nerve, though.
It really does. It takes practice. But it changes the game because you're refusing to play by the old rules. Another idea was sometimes, gently, trying to redirect.
Redirect how?
If the person seems even a little open, maybe asking about the feeling underneath the blame, like what's really going on for you right now, or what is it you actually need here? Sometimes that can cut through the defense.
Bypass the blame game. But what if they just double down? Or what if it's a constant thing and it's really hurting you?
Yeah, the sources were really clear here too. Understanding why someone might be doing it doesn't mean you have to tolerate damaging behavior.
Right.
If the pattern keeps happening, if your boundaries are ignored, if it's harming your mental health, it's okay, and sometimes necessary, to create distance. That might mean emotional distance, physical distance, or even rethinking the relationship entirely to protect your own well-being. You matter too.
So wrapping this up, why does digging into all this actually matter for you listening? Why bother with shame, guilt, blame?
Well, I think because getting a handle on these dynamics is just so empowering, really. It gives you a new lens to look through when interactions get difficult.
You can spot it, maybe.
Yeah.
See what might be going on under the surface.
Exactly. You can recognize when blame might be coming from someone else's pain, not necessarily your failure. It helps you take things less personally, maybe.
And gives you choices, right?
Yeah.
How to respond in a way that protects you.
Yes. It gives you tools. Tools to set boundaries, look after your own emotional health, and maybe even approach others with a bit more understanding for their struggles.
Even while holding firm on what's okay for you.
Absolutely, and that core distinction just keeps coming back, doesn't it? Shame tends to push outward blame, aggression, disconnection.
While guilt pulls inward towards responsibility, empathy, maybe repair.
And just seeing how different the outcomes are. One path leads to conflict, the other potentially to connection. That feels really profound for navigating life.
It really does hammer home how that internal feeling, shame or guilt, can send us down such different paths in how we act and connect.
Shame feels like it traps you, makes you lash out from that trapped place. Guilt, even though it feels bad, seems to open a door towards taking action, towards seeing the other person.
And that link between guilt and empathy, that feels like a really key protective thing, doesn't it?
Huh.
Against causing more harm.
It really makes you wonder, if blame often comes from that place of vulnerability, that difficulty managing tough emotions, then how can we create spaces within ourselves, in our relationships, maybe even wider, where it feels a bit safer to actually feel guilt, to take responsibility, instead of defaulting to shame and needing to push it all away onto someone else?
That's a really big question. Something to definitely think about.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today. It's been quite a journey into some really core human feelings.
We really hope it's giving you some food for thought, maybe some new ways to understand the tricky interactions we all face.
Yeah, and if you found this valuable, please do subscribe so you catch our future deep dives. Maybe like this episode if it resonated. That helps other people find it.
And share with anyone you think might find it helpful. We'd also love to hear what you think. Leave a comment and let us know what stood out to you.
We really value hearing your perspectives.
Until next time, keep exploring.
Keep reflecting and keep diving deep.